The warning alarms echoed through the corridors of Orbital Station 7 as Ambassador Kang Dae-ho rushed toward the communications center. His coffee cup rattled in his hand with each hurried step. Something big was happening, and in his 20 years of diplomatic service, he had learned that big things usually meant trouble. "Sir, you need to see this," called Lieutenant Park from the main console. Her face was pale, and her hands shook slightly as she pointed at the massive display screen. Dae-ho set down his coffee and stared at the image before him. A ship hung in space beyond Earth's moon, but calling it a ship was like calling a mountain a hill. The vessel stretched for kilometers, its dark hull covered in strange symbols that seemed to glow with their own light. It was nothing like the sleek human ships that patrolled Earth's orbit. "How long has it been there?" Dae-ho asked. "It appeared 15 minutes ago, sir. No warning, no movement. It just materialized." Before Dae-ho could respond, the screen flickered and changed. The bridge of the alien ship appeared, and with it came the most terrifying creature Dae-ho had ever seen. The being stood nearly 3 meters tall, with gray skin that looked like rough stone. Its 4 arms ended in clawed hands, and its head bore 6 eyes that glowed red in the dim light of its ship. When it spoke, its voice sounded like grinding metal. "I am Supreme Legate Threxmore of the Vorthak Empire, speaking for the Galactic Council. I address the primitive species of the 3rd planet." Dae-ho stepped forward, though his legs felt weak. "This is Ambassador Kang Dae-ho, representing Earth and humanity. We welcome your contact." The alien's laugh was like breaking glass. "Welcome? Foolish creature, you do not welcome us. We grant you an audience because the Council has decided to show mercy to your backward kind." The ambassador kept his face calm, though anger burned in his chest. Years of diplomatic training helped him. "Stay controlled. We appreciate the Council's attention. What brings you to our system?" "The Galactic Council has ruled for 10,000 years over this galaxy. We maintain order among the civilized species while protecting them from chaos and war. Recently, our scouts discovered your pathetic world and reported on your species." Threxmore's image moved closer to the screen, and Dae-ho could see rows of sharp teeth in its mouth. "The Council has reviewed your case. Against the advice of many members, we have decided to offer your species a great honor. Humanity will be granted membership in the Galactic Council as a Tier 3 client species." "That sounds wonderful," Dae-ho replied carefully. "Could you explain what this membership involves?" "Naturally, such a privilege comes with responsibilities. Your military forces will be dissolved immediately. The Council will station peacekeeping fleets in your system to maintain order. Your government will be replaced by Council-appointed administrators who understand proper civilization." Dae-ho felt his stomach drop, but he kept listening. "Your species shows promise as laborers," Threxmore continued. 30% of your population will be relocated to Council worlds where they can contribute meaningfully to galactic society. The remaining humans will focus on resource extraction and agricultural production to supply the greater galaxy." "I see," Dae-ho said slowly. "And if we decline this offer?" The alien's 6 eyes flashed brighter. "Decline? No species has ever been foolish enough to decline the Council's generous offer. But if such madness occurred, the species would be classified as hostile to galactic peace. The Council would have no choice but to restore order through military action." Behind Dae-ho, he could hear the sharp intake of breath from his staff. He knew they were all thinking the same thing. This was not an offer, but a threat. "The Council's generosity overwhelms us," Dae-ho said, choosing his words carefully. "Such an important decision requires consultation with our leadership. Might we have some time to consider your offer properly?" Threxmore's head tilted, showing what might have been amusement. "How much time does a primitive species require to recognize an obvious benefit?" 72 hours would allow us to follow proper procedures." "Very well. The Council appreciates species that show respect for proper authority. You have 3 of your planet's rotations to provide your answer. Do not test our patience further." The screen went blank, leaving Dae-ho and his staff staring at the empty display. The alien ship remained visible through the station's windows, a dark reminder of the choice facing humanity. Lieutenant Park broke the silence. "Sir, should I contact Earth immediately?" "Yes, but use the secure channels. I want President Lee So-young and the full cabinet briefed within the hour." Dae-ho turned to the communications officer. Also contact General Park Hye-jin at Defense Command. She needs to know about this. What do you think they really want? Asked Park. Dae-ho looked out at the alien ship. Slaves. They want to turn us into slaves and steal everything we've built. They just dress it up with fancy words about civilization and membership. He walked to the window and placed his hand against the cold metal frame. Earth hung below them, blue and beautiful, home to 8 billion humans who had no idea their freedom was about to be challenged by creatures from the stars. Sir? There's something else, Park said quietly. Our sensors are detecting unusual energy readings from their ship. The technology appears far more advanced than anything we've developed. How much more advanced? Our analysts estimate they're centuries ahead of us in most areas. Their ship's power source alone generates more energy than our entire global grid. Dae-ho nodded grimly. The situation was worse than he had feared. Humanity faced an enemy with superior technology and the confidence that came from ruling a galaxy. But something bothered him about the aliens' attitude. Threxmore had seemed too confident, too dismissive. Did the Galactic Council really know everything about humanity? Park, I want you to send a message to Director Cho Min-ho at Intelligence. Tell him I need everything he has on advanced technology projects. Everything, including the classified ones. Sir? Just do it, and make sure the message is coded with the highest security protocols we have. As his staff began carrying out his orders, Dae-ho remained at the window. The alien ship waited in the darkness of space like a storm cloud promising destruction. But storms could be weathered, and even the mightiest enemies could be surprised. Humanity had 3 days to decide its fate. Dae-ho intended to make sure they used every hour wisely. President Lee So-young stood at the head of the emergency assembly table, her usually calm face showing the strain of the past 6 hours. Around her sat the most powerful people on Earth, all gathered in the secure bunker beneath Geneva. Holographic display showed Ambassador Kang Dae-ho's face as he finished his report from Orbital Station 7. Thank you, Ambassador, Lee So-young said. Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard the situation. We have less than 60 hours to give. The Galactic Council our answer. Secretary of Commerce Wang Ji-ho raised his hand. Madam President, perhaps we should consider their offer seriously. If their technology is as advanced as our sensors indicate, resistance would be suicide. Suicide? General Park Hye-jin slammed her palm on the table. Accepting their terms would be worse than death. They want to enslave 1/3 of our population and turn the rest of us into farmers for their empire. But we'd be alive, Wang protested. Our children would have a future, even if it's not the one we planned. Director Cho Min-ho cleared his throat quietly. All eyes turned to the thin man who ran Earth's intelligence services. Before we make any decisions, there are some things you need to know. Things that have been classified until this moment. Lee, So-young nodded. Go ahead, Director. Min-ho activated his tablet, and the room's displays changed to show star charts and alien ship designs. For the past 15 years, my department has been investigating every piece of evidence we could find about potential alien contact. We've recovered crashed vessels, analyzed strange materials, and monitored deep space communications. The room fell silent as images of alien technology filled their screens. What we discovered is disturbing. Min-ho continued. The Galactic Council has made similar offers to hundreds of other species over the past 1,000 years. We intercepted fragments of their communications and records. What happened to those other species? Asked Dr. Kim Soo-jin, the science advisor. Min-ho's face darkened. Every single species that accepted the Council's offer disappeared from galactic politics within 50 years. Their worlds became resource extraction sites. Their people became laborers on Council worlds. Their cultures, languages, and histories were erased. Wang Ji-ho looked pale. You're saying they lie about partnership? I'm saying they turn every species they help into slaves. The Council calls it civilization, but it's just a pretty word for conquest. General Hye-jin leaned forward. What about species that refused? Most were destroyed completely, their worlds burned, their people scattered. But a few managed to fight back successfully. How? Lee So-young asked. Min-ho smiled for the first time since the meeting began. By being smarter than the Council expected, by having technology the aliens didn't know about, by making the cost of conquest too high. He pressed another control, and the displays changed again. Now they showed human military installations that most of the people in the room had never seen before. While the Council was watching our regular activities, we've been developing defensive technologies in secret. The crashed alien vessels we recovered gave us starting points, but human scientists improved on their designs. Dr. Kim Soo-jin gasped as she recognized some of the equipment. Those are quantum drive systems and fusion plasma weapons. How long have we had these? Long enough, Hee-jin said with a grin. Long enough to build a real defense fleet. Captain Yoon Ji-woo appeared on the communications screen from her ship in the outer system. Madam President, the experimental fleet is ready for deployment on your orders. Lee So-young stared at the displays showing human technology she had never imagined existed. How many ships do we have? 47 combat vessels with full stealth capability, Ji-woo reported, plus support craft and defense platforms. Each ship uses technology the Council won't expect. Stealth capability? Wong asked. Minho nodded. Our quantum screens make our ships invisible to their sensors. We've been watching them for months, without them knowing we were there. Months? Lee So-young felt her world shifting. How long have we known about the Galactic Council? We detected their scout ships 5 years ago, Hee-jin admitted. We've been preparing for this moment ever since. The president sat down heavily. Why wasn't I told? Because we needed to be certain, Minho said gently. And because we needed to know if our preparations would work. Now we do. Admiral Park Sung-min joined the communication link from the secret shipyard beyond Mars. Our intelligence teams have mapped every major Council military base within 50 light years. Their fleets are large but slow. Their tactics haven't changed in centuries. They depend on fear and overwhelming numbers, not innovation. Colonel Kim Ha-neul's face appeared on another screen. Our Marine forces have trained specifically for boarding actions against Council ship designs. We know their weaknesses. Lee So-young looked around the room at faces that showed determination instead of fear. Are you all saying we can actually fight them? We're saying we can surprise them, Hee-jin corrected. They think we're primitive. They expect us to surrender or die quickly. But we've learned their technology and improved on it. We've studied their tactics and found counters. Most importantly, we have something they've forgotten, which is the will to be free. Every species in their empire was conquered because they accepted that the Council was stronger. They gave up before the fight really began. But humans don't give up. Dr. Shin Woo-jin, the quantum weapons specialist, spoke from his laboratory. Madam President, our weapons are designed specifically to penetrate Council shields. Our power systems are more efficient than theirs. Our ships are faster and harder to detect. But their ship is enormous, Wong pointed out. It must carry thousands of soldiers. Size isn't everything, Captain Ji-woo said with confidence. A sword can kill a giant if it hits the right spot. Lee So-young stood up and walked to the window, showing Earth's surface far above them. Cities sparkled in the darkness, home to billions of people who trusted their leaders to protect them. If we refuse and fight, how many of our people will die? Some will die, Hee-jin admitted. War always costs lives. But if we surrender, we lose everything that makes us human. Our children will grow up as slaves on alien worlds. Our culture will be forgotten. Our planet will be stripped bare. And if we win, Minho smiled. If we win, we'll be the first species to tell the Galactic Council that Earth belongs to humans. We'll show the galaxy that freedom is worth fighting for. The president looked around the room one final time. Every face showed the same expression, determination mixed with fear, but determination winning. Then we fight, she said quietly. God help us, we fight. Ambassador Kang Dae-ho stepped off the transport shuttle and into the most incredible sight he had ever witnessed. The Galactic Council chambers stretched before him like a small city built inside a massive space station. Towering walls curved upward until they disappeared in misty clouds far above. Thousands of aliens from hundreds of different worlds filled the vast amphitheater, their strange voices creating a sound like ocean waves mixed with wind chimes. The human delegation walked, Down the central pathway, while alien eyes followed their every step, Daeho recognized some species from the intelligence files Director Minho had shown him. The tall, thin Kalari with their blue skin and 4 arms. The floating Yephany that looked like giant jellyfish made of light. The massive Grothak whose rocky bodies made them look like walking mountains. But what struck Daeho most was the way they looked at humans. Their expressions showed curiosity mixed with pity, as if they were watching condemned prisoners walk to their execution. Some aliens whispered to each other, probably making bets on how quickly humanity would surrender. Supreme Legate Threxmore waited on a raised platform at the center of the chamber. The Vorthak looked even more intimidating here than he had on the communication screen. His gray skin seemed to absorb the light around him, and his 6 red eyes tracked the humans like a predator watching prey. "Honored representatives of the Galactic Council," Threxmore's voice echoed through the chamber. "Today we witness the final joining of another primitive species to our great civilization." The assembled aliens made sounds that might have been applause, though it sounded more like grinding metal and breaking glass to human ears. At the highest point of the chamber sat Supreme Chancellor Vexathala, an ancient being whose species Daeho could not identify. The Chancellor's voice was soft, but carried clearly through the vast space. "Ambassador of the humans, you have had time to consider our generous offer. What is your answer?" Daeho walked to the speaking platform in the center of the chamber. Every alien eye focused on him as he prepared to deliver the words that would change everything. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," he began, his voice steady despite the fear in his chest. "The people of Earth have carefully considered your offer of membership." He paused, looking around at the thousands of alien faces. Some looked bored, already certain of his answer. Others seemed eager to see humanity's submission. "After much discussion and deep thought, we have reached our decision." Daeho straightened his shoulders and spoke clearly. "The human species respectfully declines your offer. We choose to remain independent." The silence that followed was absolute. For several seconds, not a single sound echoed through the massive chamber. Then the noise began. Alien voices rose in shock, anger, and disbelief. Some creatures made sounds like screaming wind. Others clicked and buzzed like giant insects. The Grothak's rocky bodies rumbled like avalanches. Supreme Chancellor Vexathala raised one appendage, and silence returned instantly. "Ambassador, you seem confused. Perhaps you did not understand our offer properly." "I understood perfectly," Daeho replied. "You want us to surrender our freedom, our government, and 30% of our people. In return, you promise to let the rest of us live as farmers and laborers under alien rule. We decline." War Prime Ketrayan, the Council's military commander, stood up from his seat. The massive reptilian creature's voice sounded like thunder. "No species has ever refused the Council's offer. Your words make no sense." "They make perfect sense to us," Daeho said calmly. "We value our independence more than your protection." Overseer Yilmoth, who managed slave populations on Council worlds, laughed with a sound like breaking bells. "Independence? You primitive creatures cannot even travel between stars properly? What independence could you possibly maintain against the Council's power?" "The independence to make our own choices," Daeho answered. "The independence to succeed or fail on our own merits. The independence to remain human." Threxmore stepped forward, his clawed hands clenched into fists. "Your refusal means war, foolish creature. The Council has fleets that could turn your pathetic world into dust. Your tiny ships would be destroyed in minutes." "Perhaps," Daeho agreed, "but that would be our choice to make." The Supreme Chancellor's ancient voice cut through the growing noise. "Ambassador, I will give you one final opportunity to reconsider. The Council has shown remarkable patience with your species. Accept our offer now, or face the consequences of defying galactic law." Daeho reached into his jacket and pulled out a small device that looked like a simple communication unit. But this device contained quantum encryption technology that the Council had never seen before. "Before I give you our final answer," Daeho said, "I would like to share something with the Council." He activated the device and spoke clearly. "Earth. Control! This is Ambassador 1. Execute Revelation Protocol." Threxmore laughed harshly. What is this foolishness? Do you think your primitive messages will change anything? No, Deho smiled, but I think this might. High above the chamber, alarms began to sound. The Council's defense systems had detected something impossible. On every screen throughout the station, the same image appeared. Sleek human ships decloaking around Nexus Prime. The chamber erupted in chaos as aliens pointed at the displays showing dozens of vessels that had appeared from nowhere. The ships were smaller than most Council vessels, but moved with impossible grace, their hulls gleaming with technology that the aliens had never seen before. Captain Yoon Ji-woo's voice came through every communication system on the station. This is Captain Yoon Ji-woo of the Earth vessel Indomitable. We come in peace, but we are prepared to defend ourselves and our independence. War Prime Ketron roared in fury. Impossible! Our sensors detected no ships approaching the station. Your sensors, Deho said quietly, were not designed to detect our quantum stealth systems. On the screens, more human ships appeared around every major Council world within 50 light years. The displays showed Earth's hidden fleet in all its glory, vessels that combined alien technology with human innovation to create something entirely new. Supreme Chancellor Vex Thala stared at the screens in shock. How long have you been watching us? Long enough, Deho replied. Long enough to learn about your empire. Long enough to discover what happens to species that accept your generous offers. Long enough to prepare. The ancient Chancellor's voice carried a note of something that might have been respect. What do you want? Deho looked around the chamber at thousands of alien faces, now showing fear instead of contempt. We want what every thinking being should want. The right to determine our own fate. The right to make our own mistakes. The right to be free. He activated his communication device again. Earth Control. Broadcast the liberation message on all frequencies. Throughout Council space, on every world where enslaved species toiled under alien rule, the same message began playing. It was simple, direct, and revolutionary. This is Earth. We offer an alternative to servitude. Join us in freedom. Captain Yoon Ji-woo stood on the bridge of the Indomitable as her ship hung in space above the massive Nexus Prime station. Around her, the Earth fleet maintained perfect formation, their quantum stealth systems flickering on and off to show the Council exactly how many vessels they had hidden throughout the galaxy. Captain, called Lieutenant Bay from the communication station. We're receiving frantic messages from Council military commands on 17 different worlds. They're demanding to know how we got past their defenses. Ji-woo smiled as she watched, the alien ships scrambling to respond to humanity's sudden appearance. Tell them we've been here all along. They just weren't looking hard enough. On the main screen, she could see the chaos inside the Council chambers where Ambassador Deho had just delivered humanity's refusal. Thousands of aliens were shouting, pointing at displays, and making sounds of panic and rage. Admiral Park is requesting permission to begin the demonstration, reported the tactical officer. Tell the Admiral he has permission to proceed. Let's show the Council what human engineering can do. Throughout the galaxy, Admiral Park Sung-min coordinated the largest military operation in human history. From his flagship hidden in the asteroid belt of the Kepler system, he watched as Earth's secret fleet revealed itself to a shocked galaxy. All ships, this is Admiral Park. Begin demonstration protocol. Show them what we've learned. The human vessels that had appeared around Council worlds began moving in ways that defied every rule of space combat the aliens knew. Ships that should have taken hours to accelerate reached full speed in minutes. Vessels that should have been easy targets for Council weapons danced between laser blasts like leaves in the wind. On the mining world of Gex 7, where enslaved Kalari worked in the deep tunnels, 3 Earth ships appeared directly above the slave camps. The human vessels broadcast the liberation message in the Kalari language, while their weapons targeted the guard towers and control centers. Colonel Kim Ha-neul led the first liberation mission from her assault ship above Gex 7. Marines, remember your training. We're here to free slaves, not conquer territory. Neutralize the guards, but protect the workers. The Council had built their empire on the belief that their technology was superior to anything younger species could develop. But as human Marines stormed the guard facilities using weapons that cut through Council armor like paper, that belief began to crumble. The Kalari slaves looked up in wonder as human soldiers broke their chains and handed them weapons to defend themselves. For the first time in 50 years, hope returned to their blue faces. "The humans are real," whispered an elderly Kalari named Vashati to his daughter. "They actually came to help us." Dr. Shin Woo-jin monitored the demonstration from his laboratory, ship on the edge of the galaxy. His quantum weapons had been designed specifically to counter Council defenses, and now he watched them perform exactly as planned. "The Council's shield technology is useless against quantum disruption beams," he reported to Admiral Park. "Their armor plating cannot stop our fusion plasma torpedoes. We have complete tactical superiority." But the real revelation was not humanity's, weapons or ships. It was the response from the enslaved species throughout Council space. On world after world, creatures that had accepted their fate as slaves suddenly began to fight back. The Yafani, who had seemed content to float in their containment fields, began using their natural energy abilities to overload Council control systems. The massive Grothak, who had worked as forced laborers in the mines, turned their incredible strength against their guards. Commander Lim Jae-sung coordinated the liberation efforts from his mobile command ship. All liberation teams, remember that our goal is not to create chaos, but to restore order under freedom. Help the enslaved species organize their own defense forces. The Council's military response was swift but ineffective. War Prime Ketron ordered his fleets to attack the human vessels, but the results were devastating for the alien forces. Council ships that had dominated the galaxy for centuries found themselves outmaneuvered by vessels half their size. Human pilots, trained in tactics that emphasized speed and innovation over brute force, ran circles around alien formations that had not changed in 1,000 years. "This is impossible," Ketron roared as he watched his flagship's weapons fail to lock onto a single human target. "How can primitives fight like this?" Lieutenant Oh Dong-min, leading a special forces team on the Council military base at Zerion 4, provided part of the answer as he disabled the base's main weapons. "Because we don't fight the way you expect us to fight. We adapt. We improvise. We overcome." The human forces had studied every Council military engagement for the past 5 years. They knew exactly how alien commanders thought, how alien ships moved, and how alien weapons worked. But the Council knew nothing about human tactics because no species had ever successfully resisted them before. Captain Bae Soo-ji piloted her small diplomatic ship between the massive Council fleets, delivering messages and supplies to newly liberated worlds. Her vessel was so fast and maneuverable that the alien ships could barely track it, let alone hit it. "The Zephyrians have declared independence," she reported to Admiral Park. "The Deltons are forming their own defense fleet. The Cortani want to know if humans will help them rebuild their government." But perhaps the most important development was happening on the Council's capital worlds, where news of the liberation spread like wildfire among species that had thought resistance was impossible. On Nexus Prime itself, enslaved workers began sabotaging the station's systems. The Council discovered that maintaining an empire was much harder when your slaves refused to cooperate. Supreme Chancellor Vexathala watched the reports flooding in from across the galaxy. In less than 6 hours, humanity had shattered the foundation of Council power simply by proving that resistance was possible. "How many ships do they have?" the Chancellor asked War Prime Ketron. "We've identified at least 300 vessels, but our sensors cannot penetrate their stealth systems. There could be thousands more." "And their technology?" Dr. Morgeth, the Council's chief scientist, answered with shaking tentacles. "It appears to be based on our own designs but improved in ways we never imagined. They've taken our quantum physics and advanced it by centuries. Their fusion systems are more efficient than ours. Their AI networks are faster and smarter." The Chancellor's ancient voice was quiet. "How is this possible? They were barely capable of interplanetary travel when our scouts first found them." Ambassador Daeho, still standing in the Council chambers, provided the answer. "Because while you were busy ruling, we were busy learning. While you grew comfortable with your power, we prepared for the day when someone would try to take our freedom." He gestured to the screens showing human ships and liberated worlds. "You made one critical mistake, Chancellor. You assumed that being primitive meant we would always remain primitive. But humans don't stay the same. We grow. We adapt. We become whatever we need to become to survive. The liberation of the galaxy had begun, and it was unstoppable. 1 year after the liberation began, President Lee So-young stood in the newly constructed Federation Hall on Earth's moon. Through the massive windows, she could see ships from dozens of different species docking at the orbital platform. The sight still amazed her. Aliens coming to Earth not as conquerors, but as friends and partners. The Galactic Council had collapsed within 6 months of humanity's defiance. When enslaved species across the galaxy realized they could fight back and win, the old empire crumbled like a house built on sand. Now, in its place, something entirely new was growing. Ambassador Kang Dae-ho entered the hall with a tablet full of reports. Madam President, the Kalari delegation has arrived. They're bringing the final membership documents for their star system. How many does that make? Lee asked. 47 member systems in the Galactic Federation of Free Worlds. The Zephyrians and Deltans are expected to sign next week. Lee smiled as she remembered the dark days when humanity faced the choice between slavery and destruction. Now they were helping to build something that had never existed in galactic history. A union based on freedom rather than fear. Commander Lim Jae-sung's liberation forces had completed their mission 3 months ago. The last council prison world had been freed, and the final slave camps had been destroyed. But their work had evolved into something new, helping former slaves rebuild their civilizations. The Cortani have established their first elected government. Lim reported from his new headquarters on the former council world of Zarian 4. They want to name their capital city after Captain Jiwoo. Captain Yoon Jiwoo, now Admiral of the Federation Defense Fleet, laughed when she heard the news. Tell them I'm honored, but they should name it after their own heroes. This is their world to rebuild. The transformation had not been easy or without cost. The Council's military forces had fought desperately to maintain their power, leading to battles across dozens of star systems. Human technology gave the Liberation Forces an advantage, but wars still claimed lives on both sides. Admiral Park Sungmin stood in the Memorial Garden on Mars, reading the names of human soldiers who had died freeing worlds they would never see. The cost had been heavy, but when he looked at the reports of species learning to govern themselves for the first time in centuries, he knew the sacrifice had been worthwhile. They died so that billions could be free, he said to Colonel Kim Ha-Newell, who had led more liberation missions than anyone else in the human forces. History will remember them. The former council species had responded to their empire's fall in different ways. Some, like the Vorthak, had tried to maintain their superiority through violence. Others, like the ancient Etherians, had simply withdrawn from galactic affairs entirely. But a surprising number had chosen to join the new Federation. Dr. Shin Wu Jin worked alongside former council scientists in laboratories throughout Federation space. It's amazing what they accomplished with limited resources, he told his research team. And it's even more amazing what we can accomplish together. The Federation's approach to membership was radically different from the Council's system. Species were not ranked by their technology or age. There were no tribute payments or mandatory labor quotas. Each member world governed itself according to its own culture and values. Captain Bae Suji had become the Federation's chief diplomatic courier, traveling between worlds to resolve disputes and negotiate agreements. The hardest part, she explained to new human diplomats, is convincing species that we really mean it when we say they're equals. Many former slaves struggled to believe that freedom was real and permanent. Generations of oppression had taught them that someone was always in charge, always making demands, always threatening punishment. Lieutenant Oh Dong-min, now director of the Federation Training Academy, worked with former slaves who wanted to become soldiers in their own defense forces. The hardest lesson to teach, he said, is that they're not fighting to serve masters anymore. They're fighting to protect their own freedom. The economic transformation was equally dramatic. The Council had built their empire on resource extraction and forced labor. The Federation operated on voluntary trade and mutual benefit. Species that had been forced to mine minerals for alien masters now sold those same materials at fair prices to willing buyers. Director Cho Min-ho had become the Federation's intelligence coordinator, But his job was very different from his old role on Earth. Instead of spying on potential enemies, he helped member species share information about threats and opportunities. The old council kept secrets to maintain power, he explained to his staff. We share information to keep everyone safe. Not every species embraced the new order. The hegemony of Krath, a collection of warrior worlds that had served as the council's military arm, declared war on the Federation 6 months after the liberation began. They claimed that humans had disrupted the natural order of the galaxy. The war lasted only 3 weeks. Human fleets, now fighting alongside ships from dozens of liberated species, proved that freedom made them stronger, not weaker. When beings fought to protect their own homes rather than to serve alien masters, they fought with courage and determination that no army of slaves could match. General Park Hyojin, now Supreme Commander of Federation forces, accepted the hegemony's surrender. On the bridge of her flagship, "You can join the Federation as equals," she told the Krath commander, "or you can remain isolated while the galaxy moves forward without you." Most Krath worlds chose to join. The greatest challenge came from an unexpected source: success itself. As word of the Federation spread, more and more species requested membership. Some had never been part of the Council's empire, but wanted to join this new alliance of free worlds. President Lee So-young faced the same choice that had confronted the Council centuries before: how to manage a growing galactic community. But the Federation's answer was different. "We don't manage anyone," she explained to the Galactic Assembly during its first meeting. "We provide a framework for cooperation, but each world decides its own future." Ambassador Daeho had been elected Secretary General of the Federation, a position that would have seemed impossible just 2 years earlier. He looked out at the assembly hall where representatives from over 60 species sat as equals, debating policies that would affect billions of lives. "The Council ruled through fear," he said in his inaugural address. "They demanded obedience and punished those who questioned their authority. We offer something different: partnership, respect, and the right to say no." The applause that followed came in dozens of different sounds: clapping, clicking, humming, and roaring. But the message was universal. As Daeho stood before the Assembly of Free Worlds, he remembered the moment 1 year ago when he had delivered humanity's refusal to the Galactic Council. He had expected to die that day, but instead, he had helped birth something unprecedented in galactic history. The surprise was not that humans had rejected the Council's offer. The surprise was that rejection had led not to destruction, but to the greatest expansion of freedom the galaxy had ever known.